Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and that is Mike Jones. Hello, Mike Jones.
Hey, Dale, I see we're going to get around to talking about your living room today.
Oh, we're finally going to do that, and you aren't wearing your lower thirds. Uh, so I
Oh,
wanted
yes,
to.
I am not worrying about. I just upgraded here in the last couple of days. So if anything goes wrong in this program, you can blame it on Bill Gates. And I see. Look, I'm already, yes, I see. Oh, yes. And, it's funny that I said that because you can probably hear me, but not see me moving. And the first error has just popped up. It's
Well, at least he's
saying
got
I have a graphics hardware problem.
an interesting expression on his face, and not his mouth wide open with his tongue sticking out or something. He's just frozen in place with his eyes closed and a little smile on his face. It's sweet.
Yes.
We'll live.
Dale will go on with things here, and I will try to fix this problem.
I'm going to go on with things. I know how to do that. So we usually start off the show with a little bit of news. There's a little bit of insight here. That's one of the things that we do. So you see this media advisory thing over my shoulder. This is from the Department of the Interior. We've been receiving media advisories. I have, before I teamed up with Mike, for 10 years. Media advisories from the government, from the federal government. And we get them from the state government. And we're accepted as completely as media by the Cave Junction City Council. And but not by the county commissioners. It's not convenient to accept us as any kind of media, even though we've got we're doing all kinds of media things, because they'd really prefer that not to let us into executive session where we might see some of the stuff they're doing back there, which is illegal, and only fully qualified media get to come in there. We were for a long time, and then suddenly decided, now you're no longer media. And Mike and I talked with Simon Hare out on the sidewalk in front of the Ann Basker about that one time, and he said, "You're critical of the government." Yeah, we're not like, going back to World War II, Vichy France. We're not collaborators. No, we're not. Okay, but if you look at the sneak preview, that guy, Curtis Hayden, says, well, we are pretty much like a newsletter for the Chamber of Commerce. Really? That's a collaborator. It's not media. And Carl Wilson, that is the voice of the Rotary Club. We're not that either. Okay, and Dan Mancuso, not Damon, out in Cave Junction, well, he told me, he since denied it, but that's a lie. He told me, well, sometimes we don't run stories because our advertisers might not like the stories. What? Okay. We do stories whether our friends like them or not, and we show both sides of things, as we did on the GMO thing, as we did with the fire guys recently, who credit us for helping Merlin Fire at least get accepted into the group. But that story's not over. We try to show both sides. So we've got 220 plus people who want to know everything that we're doing. Now, we know some of them are fans and some of them are not. That's okay. But every time we put out anything at all, boom, they get a notice. Okay. And we've got a list of over 500 people who want me to email them when we're doing things. But I'd say that these must be the opinion leaders in the town, because we know that it includes all three commissioners. We know it involves most of the movers and political shakers in town. When you think about how many people are really interested in a daily update with politics, how many can there be in Josephine County?
Probably there's at least 5 or 10.
Yes, that's right. So it's probably everybody on our mailing list, everybody that's on our instant notification list, and more. Okay, probably so. So it must be the right people, because Mike and I were talking about this the other day, and he's saying, well, really, the number of people who watch this show on a nightly basis, we think, is somewhere around a couple dozen, maybe 30. So that doesn't sound like very much, except the video inserts that we play also get a similar number. Now, it may be people are just dying to see the video twice, but I think probably not. I think what's happening is that some people want to see it with commentary. Some people need the commentary. What does this mean? And others don't. And so when you add them together, it's about 60. Okay. That's every single night, 7 nights a week,
Oh, that's pretty
420.
good. We got to
420.
start selling widgets to these people or something.
Yes, selling something to it. And we do it, out of the goodness of our heart. I mean, we're certainly not doing it because we're being paid anything. So what is this story about? This story is a media advisory, as you can see, and it's from the Department of the Interior, and it's about Secretary of the Interior Sally Jewell, and I was notified about this thing like 4 times. You got to get in on our live feed because, it happened during a county commissioners meeting. We are about local politics. There's plenty of people covering national politics, so I thought, okay, maybe we don't need to keep up on the blow by blow, second by second with a national story. But what came out of this was, it says federal and state partners make a major announcement regarding, hold on to yourselves, the greater sage grouse. Really? Okay.
The greater as opposed to the lesser?
That's what it's called.
Is the lesser sage grouse getting the short end of the stick here? What's going on?
Yes, it is. And I want to complain about that. I never complain about the government, but the lesser sage grouse just doesn't have the same PR firm working for it as the greater sage grouse.
Clearly.
So, what's that about? Sage grouse, snail darters? Okay, the sage grouse stands the chance of being the new spotted owl. And whether or not you think the spotted owl is great or ridiculous, this had a chance to shut down a number of operations business in the entire West. I mean, everybody over here, from Montana over to the coast. And the idea was, apparently, the sage grouse doesn't like oil exploration underneath its feet. Doesn't like it, disapproves, and won't mate or something when the ground is rumbling or whatever. I think they need to use genetically modified sage grouse to stop that so that they like it and they.
And I'll inject my opinion here that they don't care about any of this. They don't care at all about any of this stuff. You will not find one more person in the movement that is behind this that cares any more than the general population about any living being whatsoever. This is only an excuse. They'll go, they would put anything up if somehow it were a legitimate standing for somebody to make a claim that there's something that's going to happen if you do this. They just don't want the activity.
Well,
for
also,
whatever reason.
Some of the arguments are against cattle ranchers and I've seen some of the arguments, we don't need beef. I mean, nobody needs beef. I mean, why are we eating beef in the first place, really? And so just because this would affect cattle ranchers.
None of your business. Shut up and pass me the steak.
Right. Now, I spent some time during the last 3 days eating at In-N-Out, eating at what's that, Jimmy's, and at still my favorite,
Jimmy's?
At Carl's Jr., right? And I like the half pound. I've eaten I've eaten a little too much beef this week, but okay. That's every day for lunch. It might be time for a little bit of veggies, and I don't mean boiled cabbage like we used to get in school. Okay, they're not serving boiled cabbage to those kids that refuse to eat. They used to. It's me.
Here's the great thing. It is that you had the choice to go and eat that beef if you wanted to, or you have the choice. You could go eat bean sprouts if you'd like. I'm sure that there's some specialty restaurants where you can go, or you can go down to Sunshine Natural Foods and probably buy yourself some bean sprouts or something like that. We have the choice to do this here, but they would claim that not only should nobody eat beef, but you're wrong, or it's evil to raise beef for the purpose of eating.
It uses too much water, it uses too much land. It's not good for you in the first place, and why are you eating
They fart too much.
Yeah. All right, well, one of the things that cuts into that is you just try to have a cat that you serve only green vegetables. Cat's not going to do very well. Cats need some kind of meat, and maybe humans don't, and I probably don't need milk. Although milk chocolate, but I definitely
Yes.
don't need that. You
Yeah.
know that I don't need that. Okay, I hear you. But we don't want to get in trouble like Oprah Whip. Oh, you know who I mean. Like she did because she said, "Oh, burgers, they're awful,"
Yes.
and then she got sued up the wazoo. And boy, getting sued up the wazoo, that's painful,
Yeah.
buddy. So
Yeah, that's yes.
okay, so
You don't want that.
here's the results from the Associated Press. We get these things too, of course. And here's Secretary Jewell, and she's shaking hands with some unfortunate governor, and they're announcing that well, they don't say, but according to politics, because we're coming up on a presidential election time, gee, let's not do this. Oh, okay, that's a really good idea. Well, we're not going to do it. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll come back later and do it, but not now. Oh, so okay, so that's over. So. The other thing that happened to do with media today, and we'll talk about the meetings that happened today, the meetings are going to happen tomorrow, and some very interesting things, more interesting than sage grouse. Yes, it is. But something interesting happened in the hallway today as we were waiting to get into the county commissioners meeting. There were a couple of new people waiting to get in, and actually they just sat there and watched, which was kind of interesting. And a fellow that I know from my old church, Ron Ruby. And Ron likes me. We're on opposite sides on a number of things, but he respects what we do, and he knows that we're going to be honest about it. That although we have a different opinion about a number of things, he was there with all the stuff happening with Dennis Weber. There's chaos in the meeting. There wasn't chaos, and Ron knows there wasn't chaos at these meetings. So, he has a point of view that sometimes differs with the leader of his church, but he never thought that we were being dishonest about anything. So little did he know. And so I'm sitting there with these people, husband and wife. They don't know about beans, okay? And they don't follow politics. They're only interested in another subject, which I'll tell you at the very end. And so I didn't even ask them what they were doing. Well, how are you? This kind of stuff. And I told them who I am. And they were like, oh, well, that's nice for you. They don't know anything about our website. They don't know anything about what we do. And so they asked me, what do you do? And why are you here videotaping? And I explained to them why. And they were like, really? Well, how do you get paid? And I said, well, we don't. We do it because we're trying to be good citizens. Really? They were impressed by that. Okay. And then J.J. Schofield comes by. He's the HR director. Now, you'll be excited to find on Thursday that J.J. Schofield has a new 7 people that he'd like to hire. The county government would hire 7 of them, right? And so he's got to be real excited about that because what a delicious time to be an HR director in a county that has no money because apparently
the blob expands.
Right. Or resistance is futile, right? I mean, the guy is in 7th heaven. Anyway, I'm talking with these people, and I'm describing, and they said, well, can you give us an example? So I tell them the easiest example, the thing that happened with Keith Heck. And I said, and he says this thing about workers, which really wasn't very good, but where he really made a mistake is insisting that we, as media people, doctored the videotape, and we obviously didn't. And when I said, they were recording audio, I didn't need to tell them anymore. They just started laughing because the audio would tell the story. So J.J. Schofield's there. He said, well, this is a lie, and I'll tell you why. And they're like looking at him like, what? Who's this guy? And I said, that's the HR director. And he said, well, it was a lie because it was taken out of context. Look, this was about 45 seconds. And that's all there was. There wasn't any context. He just blurted this out and then shut up. And all that we did was take what he said and put it out there for people to see. And they had an instant reaction, and so did he. He said, well, I never said that. And J.J. Schofield says, he never said that. And I said, well, your argument, once again, is with this inanimate object. It's just made out of plastic and metal. So you think this thing is a liar, this camera? Really? Well, he didn't say that. He never said that. He never said that they sneak around. I said, yes, he did. And Mike knows exactly what he said. And he did say little moles that sneak around and do lesser services. So I said, so all we did was show it to people.
I don't understand why you would make the argument without, I mean, obviously you would think maybe he had seen the video.
I asked him that. I said, you've seen it, haven't you? You know what it said. When I mentioned it in the meeting, first he said he didn't, and then Cheryl confirmed that he did say it. I guess she thought she was being helpful. What? She just directly contradicted him, right? So JJ Schofield's kind of like really going off, and the guy doesn't know me, and he doesn't know JJ.
So wait a minute.
There's a point. It's coming. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this is today. JJ is saying this about this thing that happened a year ago.
That's right. He's still saying it because, and I pointed out to him, this is the guy. They don't know this. I said, this is the guy that says that I'm always lying. I said, but his arguments with this little camera, because it recorded what he said. And so the guy says to JJ Schofield, you know, I believe him, not you. And
wow.
JJ Schofield just shut up, buddy.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You don't get that very often.
I don't know how many people are out there to think that.
Well, no, I mean, you don't get to see that on display very often.
No, not very often do you get to see it on display, right? And JJ Schofield just shut up. This is not doing him any good. Denying things which are obvious.
Well, you know what? Listen, I mean, somebody who wanted to hire all the time and not really thinking about what that means for the county is one thing, but the ship pretty much sailed, with me on JJ Schofield when the day after the levy didn't pass, he was on social media saying how stupid the people of the county were for not passing the levy. It's like, wow, we might have had a conversation at some point, but now what would be the point?
For me, it was when I was in the executive compensation committee and elected officials compensation committee, and I was asking the same question I ask every year: why aren't you basing their compensation on what people are making here instead of what people are making in some other county that's wealthier than we are? Yeah. Well, the answer is obvious. They want to be able to get their basics here, like Simon Hare is doing, like these new reporters are doing with the Courier, and then they want to move on. And so they want to be on a salary level, which makes it look like it's equal to wherever they're going to Portland or wherever they're going to move. And so Jay said, "Well, I'm going to stop you right there." He's not even on the committee. Why are you going to stop me right there? This is not your purview to do so. Well, that's not true, and this isn't true, and that's not true. You know what? Yes, it is. And all the committee members knew that it was. So that was kind of it for me. This is a county official that's trying to stop me. It's my turn to talk. I was the only one in the audience that wasn't an elected official. Of course, they wanted to talk, and they were given carte blanche. Feel free to. Well, I would like a raise. But I can't say anything. So that's JJ Schofield. Gee, I sure hope that he hasn't, sunk all of his life earnings into his house, because when there's a new election, he may not have a job much longer. He's an at-will employee. He's a department head. And there are people who have said that, when you're saying goodbye to somebody like that, it's better just not even to talk about why, just like the city did.
Right. You don't have to rationalize.
You say goodbye.
Well, I can tell you. I can tell you why. I guess the job of the HR director, he probably believes that his job is hire people. Yes. Hire people. That's what I do. I hire people
at a higher and higher and higher salary rate.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that doesn't fit with the storyline that they're always trotting out. They're hanging by the fingernails. It just doesn't. These things don't jive. If you're hanging by your fingernails, if you are at death's door, you don't hire anybody.
Seven people he's going to talk about on Thursday. 7.
Yeah, and this is just the latest thing. This guy is on a hiring binge all the time. Right. I don't know how many people he's hired this year, but I would imagine probably in the last couple of years we've had at least 20 or 30 hires.
And these aren't necessarily replacing lost people either. Some of these are never heard of it. And think how much money this means. Just think for a second. We're going to get to tonight's show, and we're finally going to get to this picture. You figure each of these people, they're not going to be paid $40,000 a year. Some of these people are going to be paid over $100,000 a year. So at 40,000 a year with 7 people, that's 280,000.
Right.
Well, that's over $250,000, but that's not enough. That's not, and that's certainly not counting PERS. But some of those people are not going to be paid 40. So we may be pushing up toward $500,000. Where did the $500,000 come from? Well, you probably know where it came from because we've talked about that.
Budget.
Yeah, the magical budget. I'm not always a person that's in favor of downsizing. Okay, well, I am like recently, but I'm in favor of right sizing.
Yeah.
And shouldn't an HR director be advising the commission about their commissioners, advising the commission about how to smart size things, about how to adjust the roles, not to always add on people, but to say, you know, we may not need that 5th person in that, or sometimes we may not need that 3rd person in there. We might be able to do it like this, and that would be better.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? The thing is that I've noticed quite often that they seem to come up with arguments for why you must do this. And they have an elaborate argument where if you didn't do this, it would cost a whole lot more. I'm sorry. I'm just not buying that. You know, if we are not on the edge of the fiscal cliff, then you better tell us about how much better we're doing. And then, you know, commensurately, let's move some of that money that we have more of for some reason over to the sheriff's department where we're supposed to be short. So I don't understand how we're hiring people when we're not giving more money to the sheriff, unless we're using the fact that the sheriff doesn't have funding as a club to beat people over the head with.
Now, some of these people apparently are going to go into the administrative side, some of the 7, administrative side of the sheriff. But where are they not going to go? What is it that everybody says they would like to have that we're not going to get, Mike? We're not going to get patrols.
Right, of course.
No, because how can they pass the next levy if we already have more patrolmen?
Yes, so this is the thing, is that they can never, ever bring law enforcement up to snuff, because then law enforcement will no longer be an issue. And they need issues, because if they don't have an issue, they got nothing to run on.
It's not just us. It's not just this county. That happens all over the place. This is not some internet tale that we're making up. This is happening everywhere.
When I was in California, listen, they got a revenue stream coming out of every orifice down there. If they weren't complaining about firemen, they were complaining about policemen. And if they weren't complaining about policemen, they were complaining about teachers. Never anyone else. Everyone who works for government is a fireman, a policeman, or a teacher. Nothing else, ever. So we don't have a whole lot. I mean, you can't hold up the teachers around here as a charity case, you know, because they're making there's plenty of money coming out of our property tax. Just look at your property tax bill. You know, most of it is to the schools, so there's no reason to feel sorry for them. However, the people getting the short end of the stick is the sheriff's department here, and so anyway.
That's not going to change, buddy. It's not going to change.
No,
it's not going to change unless we have a different mindset in the HR department, in the finance department. Well, you know, this is all connected. In the assessor's department, the clerk, you know, everyone that complains about government is a moron, really. With the county commissioners, the mayor, 4 city councilors, everybody's up for election. Well, not everybody, but more than enough to make a difference. Okay, so this thing over my shoulder. Here is the tortured analogy that I'm using. Imagine that your nephew would like to move in with you. And you know, and your brother or sister, whatever. Yeah, well, yeah, that would probably be good for him being a little independent. And you've got some outlying building, and he'd be delighted to go in there and fix it up. Well, it certainly doesn't look like this, but this is what he's got in mind. Well, good luck with that, right? Okay, but I'd like to set it up, he says, so that there's a computer there with a big screen. Well, you had in mind that if you wanted to use the computer, the internet, just like you did with your kids or with your grandchildren, you're going to use that in the living room because we want to be sure you're not surfing for porn or some other stupid thing. Well, he doesn't want you to watch over his shoulder. Like the county commissioners would not like you to be there with a camera, or me. They would call you names. They would make fun of you. They would say you're not media. Okay, so he would like to set that up. And also, he'd like the building to be far enough away from the main house so, I'll put up soundproofing. Uh-huh. And we'll have parking behind the building. Right, of course. Okay. And by the way, just one more thing, and this is what's happening with the city council. I'd like free access to your bank account. Well, of course he would.
Sure.
So, if you think, well, we'll be sure he gets square meals. That's what you're going to, promise your brother or brother-in-law or whatever. Well, of course, that's what you're going to say. But if he wants to eat pizza every night, put in a huge refrigerator. He doesn't need a freezer. He just wants a huge refrigerator for the beer. Put up, a widescreen. Have lots of girls over. Okay, good luck. Parking. Parties all night long as you can't hear it, and I'd like access to your bank account. Well, this is what's happening with the city council. Oh, really? Well, prove that analogy, Mr. Matthews. Okay, here it is. You obviously don't understand economic development, Mr. Matthews.
Yes, that's right.
If they pass this sales tax, they can change it any way they want after it's been passed. And the only way that you can do anything about it is, they put it on the ballot without a vote of the people. They have the ability to put anything on the ballot that they wish. And so they wrote up this thing and put it on the ballot. And it's just the start. Because as was pointed out in a court of law, they have the ability to adjust this anytime after you pass it.
That's when the custom interior decorating comes into play.
That's right, because they have open access to your bank account. See, because right now it's like 70 businesses. Well, they could just as easily make it 300 businesses.
Yeah,
and they could do that in one meeting.
Yeah.
They're not going to ask you anymore. They've already said they don't need to ask you to put they don't need to ask you to put a property tax and slap it on you. They don't need to ask you. They do on the county level. Well, the city's got it worked out, so they don't even have to ask you. They can just impose a property tax on you at any amount.
Yeah, you know what though? This is, I got to tell you, if they don't pass the sales tax in Grants Pass, or if they do pass it and then these guys start jiggering around with the numbers, either of those two scenarios requires the spending of a lot of political capital. And, you could have a potential recall house cleaning like took place in the city here just a few years ago.
But it's going to take a while. So, Mike, what is they knew ahead of time. They said that they knew ahead of time. I don't think that they knew the Chamber of Commerce would come out against them. I'm not sure that they knew the Republican Central Committee would come out against them because it is the largest political group in the area. But what were they thinking when they realized that they were going to get hit hard by the entire business community in this area? What were they thinking? Why would they risk that political capital?
For more money. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Yeah. Yes. Why? Yes, it is.
Well, that's
why they think they're going to get more money. And as we've been talking about this, and we have all sort of surmised that they probably are not going to come up with the amount of money that they have speculated that they would come up with. And so
they already said that.
Yeah. So, upcharging on this, on the tax and expanding the scope of the tax is almost an inevitability as you look at it logically with a pencil and paper right now.
Well, all the city councilors said yes, except for two, actually 1.5. Lily Morgan said, I don't think this is a good idea. And then the half guy was one that said, well, I don't know if I like the idea of getting rid of that property tax. Well, they've got one foot on a banana peel and the other in the grave. They're going to put either this property tax, the property tax is due to go away anyway. So you're having no effect. They're making you think, oh, you're going to control the weather. No, you're not. They can put it right back, and they're going. That they're going to say, well, gee, this isn't working out so good, so we're going to have to, one, increase the number of goods that are affected by this, two, increase the number of companies that are affected by this, and except for our own companies, which magically any of their companies don't seem to be affected by this. You like that? And then three, they're going to have to say, well, we really can't get rid of that jail tax, and we're not really going to be able to get rid of the property tax.
Call it something else because they have the water treatment plant situation coming up here pretty soon. But let me ask you something, Dale.
Yes, sir.
Now they have said, let's see if I can, get back on the train here. They're expecting a certain amount of money to come in. If that amount of money doesn't come in, they're going to be in kind of a pickle. So people right now, when they get their ballot in the mail and they start reading through the measure and everything, they're going to be under the impression that instantly the $1.79 levy is going to be removed. In other words, they're not going to have it for the next year. But are you saying that they will quite probably leave that on there through its entire term and just say, well, we're not going to renew the levy? That's what you voted on.
Yeah. Well, look, the other side of that is, I'm not one of these people. I live in the city, but there are people in this city that push real hard, including the Chamber of Commerce, who's now on the other side, to impose on everybody in the city a property tax. They pushed real hard for that. They took a vote. They were asked, and they took a vote. Now their vote is going to be nullified. Really? What's up with that?
Right. It's an odd thing because, most people, when they read through this, they're going to believe that, okay, the minute the results come in on this, I am no longer going to be subject to the water and sewer tax, and I'm no longer going to be subject to the $1.79 public safety levy.
But Mark Bartholomew,
that's not really true.
He said it in court. We forced him into court, and he was bragging about it. Look, and the proof of this, that he's not full of beans, well, maybe he is, but the proof that that's all right is, if you were one of those people who thought, well, we're really going to need a property tax, your vote is now going to be nullified because they're going to wipe it out. Really? Now, how the heck do they do that? Mark Bartholomew said they can do that anytime they want to. They can put it on, take it off. Anyway, they don't need your vote. They don't need your vote. No, they don't.
But the point is,
this is all a scam.
Yeah, right. But the point is that at the very least, people believe that come the 1st of July of next year, if this thing passes, come the 1st of July, at the very least next year, the water and sewer bill thing will go away, which it's going to anyway. And the other thing is they are believing that this $1.79 public safety levy is going to go away. But they have not really said that they have said they're going to rescind it. But if they don't take it away right then and they let it run its course all the way until it expires, then they haven't actually done anything. They haven't actually rescinded it. Like they said they were going to do.
No.
So I'm very anxious to get some clarification from some of these people.
You're not going to get any because they are not just simply like what the commissioner said about the property tax. We're keeping it purposely vague.
Well,
when they said we're keeping it purposely vague, that was it for me. Yeah.
That's another year. What is it? When does the $1.79 levy expire?
I may not be able to give you everything down to the last day, but my understanding is
it's in 2018 somehow, right?
Yeah, one of these two things expires anyway. I think that's the jail utility fee. It's going to expire the day before this goes into effect, if it does, and the other expires in a couple of years. But they've also said, because you asked the mayor, they've also said, well, You asked him what would happen if it turns out that this doesn't look like it's such a good deal and all these companies are going out of business. And the mayor's answer, this is really important, and it's too bad it's not in the Courier. The mayor said, you tell him what the mayor said.
The mayor said, well, I asked him, if it looks like everybody's going out of business here in 6 months and, this is really hurting people, what are you going to do then? Oh, well, we'll leave it on for another year or two.
Really? Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know?
Yeah. Well, one, it appears that they don't care what the effect is on business. Even if they feel like it's hurting them, they're going to keep turning the screws on them for another couple of years. And then if they're still dying after 2 years, which is incredible, then maybe we'll make some adjustments. Maybe they'll back it off 0.25% or something. It's odd, but this thing here, I think there needs to be some clarification on that. And you as a voter, before you are thinking that you're going to get a big discount right away here, you need to take into consideration that they're probably not going to do anything. Even though they say they're going to rescind that tax, they're not going to rescind that tax. I don't think they are. I think they're going to leave that to run its course and say, well, we're not going to renew it. Well, you couldn't have renewed it without a vote of the people. Well, I guess they could have.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, with Mike, I don't think that you need any more clarification than you have already. Just with the mayor's one statement. If it's not working, half the businesses are going out of business. Well, we'll let it go for another year, maybe 2. You don't need to know anymore. Despite all the blather that they tell you, even if they put it in writing, they're asking you to vote on something which it doesn't matter what you vote because, as was said in a court of law, they can bring it right back anytime. They don't even need your vote for this. They can do it without you. Well, that's a scam. That's a scam. Okay, all right. So I think it's important. We're going to go through some of the things that we saw in the voters' pamphlet, and we told you the whole thing the other day, and some of the ideas that inspired us. Well, one thing is, I think we should start referring to this as the city of sales tax. Down in California, there's something called the city of industry. I don't know if it really is a city of industry. I think we should start referring to Grants Pass as the city of sales tax. That would serve them right. And the other thing, which I think is very interesting, is here you've got a bunch of people in the no new taxes movement. No new taxes movement has really gained a lot of momentum in our area. Whether you think that they're fools or brilliant, they are the winning team and have been the winning team, undefeated winning team for over a decade. Now the no new taxes people from the county are paying intense interest to the city. Really? Well, that was a stupid idea to get them to be paying attention to the city because they see that the two are linked. Yes, they are. Now, one of my little pet theories is one of the reasons the city council is doing this is they've been beaten badly every time they want a higher property tax by the no new taxes. No new taxes people, not no taxes. They're not stupid. Oh, there's a couple of them, but most of them are saying, no, we just don't want any new taxes. This is a new tax. It's so new that no one in Oregon has done this kind of tax. Nobody anywhere.
Right.
I think some entrepreneur should put up big signs, and they need to do it in Cave Junction and in Merlin, for people coming both directions, and the big, like those big billboards, signs that says last chance for gas when you're entering the desert. Okay, last chance to get your gas. You better buy it, buddy. And this would say,
listen, there's one right down at Crescent City.
Yes.
There's one that says, last chance liquors there in California or whatever.
And so what this would say is last chance to buy anything before you enter the city of sales tax.
Yeah, let's wait until they pass it before.
No, not now. But if it, well, look, and the other thing too, which is forever, is Grants Pass is already probably getting some kind of reputation. What company would want to move here if you've got a city council that has the ability to put a property tax on with no vote? That has the ability to change a vote that you've already taken anytime they want to. If you voted for a property tax, how do you feel about the fact that they're now erasing that just all by themselves? That they can put something on the ballot without asking you. And they're putting the thing that you work so hard. Think how much money and time and effort was involved for the people who are opposite from my opinion, but okay, do what you want to. It's America. And they won. Now that win is being wiped out. Really? Now that shows you what they would do with everything. They're wiping out that win. Now, wait a minute. That sounds like Harry Mackin and Roy Lindsay. Well, I don't like the vote, so we're going to reverse it on our own. Really? Roy Lindsay is involved in this up to his neck. He just wrote a letter to the editor today why it's such a wonderful idea. So now the no new taxes people are involved. This is a big mistake because they're now looking at the city of Grants Pass saying, maybe we ought to be paying more attention to this. I think that part of the reasoning behind this, I'm not sure they think it all through, but part of the reasoning is they want to take these guys on head to head. Because, well, we always win here in the city. They always say that. So maybe they figure if they can give the no new taxes people in the county a drubbing, that then they'll be more powerful than ever. But when you look at the number of arguments that were in the voters pamphlet, and many of them from the no new taxes people, they've got now even the Chamber of Commerce is on their side. Really?
Yeah. You
were forming these alliances that did not exist before because you're going to teach them a lesson. Well, we'll see who gets taught a lesson. Go ahead, Mike. What else did you see in the voters' pamphlet statements that seemed maybe a little bit new to you?
You know what? Actually, I saw a lot of stuff that was the same.
Yes.
A lot of the same arguments being made. I think a couple of people delved into the bureaucracy that's going to have to be put in place, and the fact that we are probably underplaying that element of it, and that the city is going to need a lot of money and a lot of new employees to administrate this, because they're going to find out in short period of time that just like the State Board of Equalization down there in California, you need to go out and crack some skulls in order to make this thing happen. And listen, why would the city of Grants Pass ultimately end up being any different than the IRS or the State Board of Equalization when it comes to collecting money for themselves? I'll tell you, I used to do, I was a plumbing contractor in the city of San Francisco, and I worked there for a number of years. And then I stopped doing business down there, but that was, I was doing business under a particular business name down there. Then I came back one time to do one particular contracting job in the city of San Francisco under my other business name, which was Michael Jones General Contractor. And they hounded me. In fact, they are still hounding me. And that was almost 20 years ago. They send me something every couple of years saying, you owe us $20,000. They're just pulling it out of midair. Has nothing to do with anything. They're trying to intimidate you into sending them a check. But I haven't even been in the city of San Francisco in nearly 20 years. That I have stopped into SFO a couple of times, making connecting flights, but that's about it. But they are relentless. And then they also sent a letter over to the State Board of Equalization saying, hey, this guy, I believe this guy's evading taxes. Why don't you go after him too? And then they do. They go, we think he made this much money this year. And then the State Board of Equalization contacts me. You made this much money. Why haven't you filed a state return in the state of California? It's insidious. Now, how much money have they spent coming after me? And I have made no income in that state in years. They don't care.
Now, these things that we found are not necessarily going to be in some kind of order. But another thing that I thought was kind of interesting is the city council conveniently made sure that businesses the counselors and mayor are personally involved with, seems to be the case just by coincidence, they're all sales tax exempt. Plus, all 10 of the city's largest property taxpayers would no longer have to pay the $1.79 public safety levy. And all of them will have businesses that will be tax exempt instead.
Right, at the expense of tourists and the business owners who are going to be taxed.
Now, it has been for people who own property, which have a tendency to be people of greater means. This would affect people of all income levels, all ages, everybody. And some people say, well, good. And others are saying, wait a minute, it's going to go away from property owners. Well, okay, I'm for that. And now instead it's going to be shifted over to people that can perhaps least afford it. I don't know. It depends on how you categorize that,
Right. Well,
older people on fixed incomes, for example.
Right. And you could say that people with low incomes and people with fixed incomes are going to be the ones most hurt by this, because they're probably the ones who are least capable to leave the city to go shop somewhere else. And, they're all of the stuff that they normally buy is the stuff that gets taxed.
It's unwisely pitting safety against small business prosperity. Really?
Yeah.
And it would allow the city council to expand the roster of businesses, we've already talked about this, without a vote of the people. They can change it any way they want. Up, down, sideways, bigger, more companies. And at the time when the local economy is still fragile, imposing a tax that would discourage consumer spending in Grants Pass is, well, it's sending the wrong message.
Well, and here's something that was said over and over and over again in these arguments. It's permanent. I don't know what they were smoking, because clearly it's not permanent by the definition that Judge Wolke gave us. So, but these people that made these arguments are smart enough to understand that indeed it is permanent.
Well, as I said to the city council, when I went up in front of them, I said, the problem that you have now is that thanks to Mark Bartholomew, you can thank him directly. The judge says that telling the population that this is permanent is false and deceptive. Well, if it's false and deceptive by the judge's ruling, then when they also mention the word permanent in the text, well, then why didn't the judge say, and you must strike that because that's false and deceptive? Well, he didn't, did he? Now, why wouldn't he say that? If he's convinced that it's false and it's deceiving the voters, then why is it okay, not okay for it to be in the title, but it is okay in the text? How many of the 7 task force members will be exempt from this? They were the ones that put this thing together, one of them being Roy Lindsay. Okay. So even though the opposition clearly outweighed these guys, I think that they felt that it was worth gambling their political credits, if they have any left, after the thing with the expensive artwork that's next to bus stops, after the thing which had to do, what's the other big disaster that they had, changing the logo and the motto of the I think it should be called the City of Sales Tax. Just change it from Go Rogue, don't wear your underwear. Instead, change it to the City of Sales Tax.
Or go to Rogue River, where things are cheaper.
Go to Rogue. Yes, right.
Yes.
So they can add to the types of goods and services subject to taxation, and they don't need to have a vote about anything. And what are they basing this on? Projected estimates of their experts. These are the same experts that said that you were going to go for changing the logo. These are the same experts, the staff people that advised them that everybody would welcome with open arms a new logo for the city. Right, that everybody would love all the new artwork next to tune of over $100,000 per bus stop. These are their experts.
Right.
These companies, go ahead.
And to that point, Dale, Tony Webb brings up in her argument. She says sales tax revenue is a guesstimate. Comparables used to guesstimate the revenue were cities in Washington state with a substantially higher income per person, meaning more disposable income. Bada bing.
Well, look, another thing too is that as Richard Michelin pointed out, and I don't know if this is one of your favorite guys or not one of your favorite guys. He
I like his
said,
tires.
right, right. He said in 2013, he said the idea that the city said that that levy, that property tax levy, would only fund police and fire. Remember, that's what they said, was untrue, because they had 4 years of that supplementary tax levy, and half of it already they've proven went for discretionary spending and doubling the city's general fund bank account, and did not go, according to Richard Michelin in 2013, November 5, did not go toward only funding police and fire. Well, with that kind of record, why would we? And just the fact that the possibilities are there. Have they proven to you that they're entirely trustworthy? And why you control? We would never do such a thing. We'd like the ability to do so. We insist on the ability to do so, but we would never actually do it.
So wait a minute, Dale. Are you suggesting that they lied to us about the amount of money that we needed to do something just so that they could have some other discretionary money?
It's permanent funding. No matter what the judge says, that was crazy. It's permanent funding.
Yes.
And what they want is a permanent funding source, which sounds good, to spend any way they want to. No. Not going to go there. So what do you think will happen?
That argument didn't make it into the.
It didn't. And so now play back the video, Mike. Play back the video.
Okay. Oh my goodness!
Why am I mumbling?
Hang on, you're not mumbling. Hang on. This is See, this is what happens when you change operating systems.
Yeah.
You end up unplugging cables and not plugging them back in again. Okay, here we go.
Dale Matthews, Grants Pass. In court the other day, Mark Bartholomew, the city attorney, said that in this upcoming sales tax, that the city could put the sales tax on any time without a vote of the people. Really. And he also said that the city has the power to revoke the vote at any time they wish to. So, see, I wondered why that wasn't in the Daily Courier, because that's a pretty important quote. So I wrote a letter to the editor. It used to be if you wrote a letter to the editor, you could criticize the editor or the newspaper. Not anymore, not in our town. Because when I wrote those quotes, the exact quotes, every ah and I put down at the end, gosh, why isn't this in the Daily Courier? You can find the video at badcounty.com. Well, the editor decided to cut that part out. Really? You can do that with letters to the editor? Yes. Cut it out. Now, the judge also said that inclusion of the word permanent in the headline, the part at the top, would be false and deceptive to the people. It would. Because the city council's been calling it a permanent tax all along. It's been in the newspaper. In fact, the article that wrote about it, Jim Moore wrote, had the word permanent in the article twice about how this is a permanent tax. But see, the judge said that would be false and deceptive. Well, now, wait a minute. It wasn't in the headline, but it was in the text a couple of times. Well, but the judge didn't say, you've got to change that because it's false and deceptive. Does the city council know that they've been false and deceptive all the time with what they've been saying about this tax? Another thing that's not in the Courier is the fact that the Republican Central Committee, arguably the largest political group in our area, has voted to oppose this tax. Where's that in the Courier? Where's that on KJO? How come we're the only ones that are talking about this? See, according to the Board of County Commissioners, what I do, coming up on 300,000 views, that's not media. That's not media of any kind. Wow, stop referring to yourself as media. Except we're the only ones carrying the news some of the time. We eat their lunch on a daily basis. Yet we're not media of any kind, you see. So if you really are interested in seeing what the commissioners have to say about something like county fire, you can see the entire commissioners meeting about that subject in their words, without interruption. Or you can watch our nightly show and watch us interrupt them and make fun of them. And in addition to that, you could go the next day, which is Monday night, and you could see the entire point of view from County Fire, because we interviewed 3 of them live on our show, and they have a few things to say. It won't be in the Courier.
Now, let me tell you about this guy. He's crazy, that guy.
As I was sitting down, I looked back at Jim Moore from the Courier, and he was just laughing and laughing. Really? Laugh it up, buddy.
Well, you know, they shouldn't be laughing because Dale is eating their lunch. He's eating
on
their
a nightly basis, and boy, it's getting stale. And I feel like throwing out half of it, like they're doing at the schools. Where's that story in the Daily Courier?
Right. Yes. That's
so. What I've been doing is I've been calling the new reporters that this is a light at the end of the tunnel. I've been calling the new reporters at the Courier. They're going to be replacing Jim Moore. Thank God. That's the only reason we exist, is because the Courier's not reporting the news. They're not even reporting the quotes. They had a guy there in the courtroom, and they're not reporting the quotes. The things that happened. And they certainly wouldn't interview me or even the lawyer from the Chamber of Commerce. Really, that's the way Jim Moore covers so he's going to be out of the picture. So I'm talking with these guys, and I called them to give them news tips. And don't take my word for it, I tell them. They seem to appreciate that. I said, but you can go see the video, and here's where you can find it. Here's what to type to go see the video for yourselves. And there's no commentary on the video. It's just the county commissioners talking. And then you can see and you can get the quotes from a meeting where you were not. Where you were not at? No, that's bad English. But you can see for yourselves what it was that they said. And if you don't believe that, you can go to what Keith Eck doesn't think exists. You can go to the county's audio recording. You can hear them say that. They're going to match. We don't need to make anything up. It's right there. And so I called them, and well, that's great. And I said, you know the reason we do this? And both of them said, well, because you're just trying to be helpful? I said, yeah, that's right. So you can be helpful too. Tell your neighbors what you've heard.